This episode of Sideline Warning is brought to you by Roost Sport, makers of the original magnetic running pouch. Whether you're biking, running, hiking, or even traveling, the Roost Sport clips to your waistband with magnets for an easy, convenient way to carry what you need without the bulk of belts or bags. Visit theroostsport.com and use the code SIDELINE30, all lowercase, for 30% off their entire product line. Again, that's theroostsport.com, promo code SIDELINE30. And now on with the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Sideline Warning, the show where sports takes are sure to go way too far into the field. Here to recap this week's biggest and best sports stories are your hosts, Dave Adams, Ben Foster, and Adam Russell.
And welcome to Sideline Warning, everybody. As always, you've got the one, the only, the golden voice of the Southeast, Dave Adams, coming to you live and in living color from Harvest, Alabama, all the way at the top of the state of Alabama, because I am on top of things, as always. And as always, I have brought my friends along, all the way from Birmingham, Alabama, Hollywood Ben Foster. Ben, have you built your ark? Because I think we're going to need it now.
I am measuring my cubits of gopher wood as we speak.
Yeah, because, we got, 10 inches of rain last week. And now I think they said somewhere like 2 inches this weekend.
Yeah, it's pretty wet around here. I am happy to be positioned on top of a hill. And that's really my only relief, right now. So I'm looking forward to the next few days being kind of sunny, because right now, yeah, it's kind of like swimming.
Yeah, but you are doing the same thing I am. I mean, you have to actually still take a dog out and help potty train this dog while this rainstorms are happening, right?
Yeah, this is less than ideal puppy weather. What I've found myself doing is checking the radar on my phone constantly.
Yeah.
And running outside in between clouds.
How's that working out for you, sir?
I'm like, here's my narrow window. We're gonna time it just to this window when the storm breaks, and so yeah, it'll be raining. I'll watch the radar, and then I'll be like, here's the golden moment. We're going outside. So I've fared okay.
All right. Well, somebody else that fares okay is our other friend, all the way from the House of Mouse, Bonaventure Lakes. Let's see, Lake Buena Vista, Lady Lake, Lake Butler, Lake Mary, Lake Hart, Lake Helen, Lake Catherine, Lake Mac Forest Hills, from St. Cloud, the phenomenal brother, Adam Russell.
That's a lot of water, and it's not even raining here, guys. So, all those lakes.
I'm sure what Alabama has done this week has filled those Florida lakes.
Well, I'll tell you, the one thing you forgot to mention is the home of the only undefeated team remaining in the AAF, which I hope we'll get to at some point today.
We will get into that.
Okay, good.
But I don't want to, considering the Iron might not have an offensive line left by the time we face y'all next week.
We'll get into that. I just wanted to point that out as early in the show as possible.
Well, we appreciate that. Ben, did you go to the game this weekend, or were you too waterlogged?
No, I did not make it to the game. There was a ton of rain before the game, and then things actually kind of cleared up a fair amount right around the time of the, I'm using air quotes, kickoff.
Yeah, I saw that, and I thought that we were going to have a late quote unquote kick. How do we start a game? What do we call it? The coin toss? What's
the start off?
The first possession. The initial, I don't know. Yeah, there's not really a good way.
First snap.
Okay, so we need to have...
You got to be there for first snap. That's what
we need to have either Mark or Tom back on, both Toms back on, and we need to get some details of how we talk about the start of these AAF games. We can't call it the first kick. Can't say the kickoff is at 3 o'clock. Okay, first snap. Okay, we'll go.
There you go.
You could say the game kicks off like in a figurative sense.
Yeah, how about that? Let's not. I was going to have basketball as the first topic, but Adam, you gave us a great segue into AAF, so we can go ahead and do AAF as the first topic. Adam, you are, I guess, the most versed in the Orlando Apollos and Salt Lake Stallions game because that's your hometown team,
Yes.
even though they are blue and orange as their colors. Go ahead and tell us your thoughts on that game and how that went.
I was tracking it, the stats, because I wasn't in a position to watch it. And then when I did turn it over in the fourth quarter, I couldn't believe the weather. I actually have a picture that I posted out on Twitter of Steve Spurrier in a beanie, guys. He's gone from baseball cap to visor to beanie. I posted that out on the official Facebook group for the Apollos, and someone said the next one we're shooting for a cowboy hat. So we're going to just make the whole round of every type of headwear that Spurrier can have. But no,
to be a head coach in the AAF, you've got to wear a lot of hats.
Oh, look at you. Wow. But no, I think overall the Orlando, they did good considering the conditions. I mean, the fact that they had to go from where they've been practicing here, where it's in the 70s, or in South Georgia, I guess would be the more accurate location of where they've been practicing, where it's in the 70s, 80s, and then to go out to Salt Lake where it's actively snowing and that cold. I think they performed really well. The part of it I saw firsthand, I mean, you could tell Salt Lake was just back. They had them backed into a corner, and the pressure that they were able to put on the quarterback that late in the game made the difference of them not being able to mount a comeback. So, I mean, it looked like the same Orlando team we've seen all season. So It bodes well for the only undefeated team left in the entire league.
I will say that, and it bodes well great for that because you guys have basically everybody on your team healthy.
Yeah.
And that bodes well for any team. But a team that relies on offense as much as Orlando does, it looks like it's going to be a pretty easy ride now for the East. Because, Ben, we have to talk about our team now. Birmingham, on the other hand, we've said it over and over and over. They are not an offensive juggernaut team. In fact, the last 2 weeks, they've scored 12 points, now 11 points. The first 2 weeks, it looks like they were pretty good, and that Perez was going to be one of the better quarterbacks in the league. But this offensive line for Birmingham just can't keep it together. It seems like every time I'm watching this team, 2 to 3 of the offensive linemen are going down hurt, and you're having to go 2-3 deep in the depth chart.
Yeah, in previous shows we've talked, about some of the technical aspects of this offensive line, about different blocking schemes. But when you've got guys that are hurt, you just can't have any continuity on the line. And it's pretty clear that Birmingham wants to rely on quarterback play, and they obviously want to rely on a star like Trent Richardson. But you can't do much with a good quarterback or a good running back if you can't have any sort of blocking for them.
Yeah, if you want to rely on a star like Trent Richardson, you need to have more. And this is from today. Today's rushing stats: 8 carries, 15 yards, 1.9 yards per carry. You can't do that.
But he did what you talked about. He scored the only touchdown.
Right, exactly.
It's exactly what you were talking about last week.
He's a touchdown vulture. And you want somebody like that, but I don't think that that's what Birmingham set out to do. And Landris Perkins is a great running back. Birmingham only gave him 1 carry for 3 yards. So something's got to give with this Birmingham Iron team.
Well, I think they need to put the playbook in one of 2 categories. They either need to have like a I formation or something like that, where if they really want to get Trent Richardson running, they need to have somebody that's a running back blocking for him. They need to put a fullback out there. I don't think there's a fullback on the roster, is there?
No, there's not.
They need to go find a fullback, they need to go sign a fullback, or they need to take a tight end or something and create an I formation or something like that where they can power run and get some blocks for Trent Richardson besides relying on the offensive line. Or you take Trent Richardson off the field until you can get into the red zone, because Trent's been pretty good in the red zone. If you're calling him a touchdown vulture, he's a touchdown machine. If you want to get him in the end zone, get down the field first, then put him in, and just use him in the red zone. Just use him in those short yardage situations. So if that's the case, put an extra receiver out there, run some sort of spread when you're not in the red zone, and then run a power running formation when you're in the red zone. You got to do something like that if you're going to be this thin on the offensive line and not be able to get better blocking.
Yeah, Ben, you say go after and get a fullback. I happen to know a fullback who is pretty good in the NFL, and he has some history blocking for Trent Richardson. He has some history in the state. The one, the only, Justin Fowler. I don't think he's doing anything in the NFL right now.
Go get him. Go get him. Put him out there. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. Maybe Johnny Football could give you guys a boost.
Well, that's something I want to talk about. Now, if he comes into the league, Johnny Football will probably play for San Antonio. But San Antonio has Logan Woodside, and he's not great, but I think he did a decent job, I guess, navigating and commanding the Birmingham Iron Waters this week. Do you think San Antonio would want to go out and get Johnny Football right now?
I think so, because just the hype it creates. It gets so many people excited about what's going on. People who like Johnny Manziel are going to show up and watch. People who don't like Johnny Manziel are going to show up and watch. And that to me is part of what the AAF is doing. They're grabbing notable names and guys that have had a lot of success in college and using that for their marketing strategy. So I don't know why they wouldn't want Manziel. Even if there's drama, it's still good drama because it gets more people talking about the AAF.
Are there still people out in this world that still like Johnny Manziel, Ben?
I think there's some people in Texas. I think there's some A&M fans that would happily drive to San Antonio to watch a game to see Johnny Manziel play.
Well, the Alouettes are affiliated to the Iron.
Are they really?
They are. So let me ask you that question. Would you be excited to see him come to Birmingham?
Well, first off, he's been cut by the Alouettes, hasn't he? So he's no longer with the Alouettes.
That's not with them, but I'm saying that's the closest connection is to the Iron with the Alouettes. But if he were to come to your team, would you be excited about that? I mean, I know Texas might to have him come back, but would you guys?
No, I wouldn't.
No, I wouldn't at all, because I think that he's not a good quarterback.
Yeah.
His decision-making is subpar. And really, the one play that he's known for that won him the Heisman in 2012 against Alabama was that everybody thought he was down. He ran 30 yards in the backfield and luckily found a wide receiver in the back of the end zone. If you really think about it, there were probably about 30 things that could have gone wrong with that play, and that if Alabama's defense had played it right, Johnny Manziel wouldn't have won the Heisman on that one play because that play would have never happened. So really his star power is based on luck. And this might sound like a crimson colored glasses type guy, but if Alabama stops him there, Johnny Manziel does not win the Heisman, and Johnny Manziel is not a first-round quarterback in the next year's draft. Am I way off my rocker here?
No, I think that's reasonable.
No.
I still would show up to watch Johnny Manziel. Not because I'd be there to cheer for him, but I'd be there to cheer for somebody to get a hit on him. I'd be cheering for defense. So if he comes and plays for the Birmingham Iron, which isn't going to happen, I wouldn't want him on my team. But if it was a scenario where he was at San Antonio before we played San Antonio, I would be absolutely fired up about that, because that'd be an interesting storyline. It would be this former A&M guy playing against some former Alabama guys. That's an interesting storyline. And it's the drama that always surrounds Manziel, and it's a really good defense against Manziel, who may or may not have it. That's the whole problem. Like, the off-field issues create a ton of problems for Johnny Manziel, but the problem is he hasn't produced on the field. If he was producing on the field, he'd be getting the benefit of the doubt in the off-the-field issues. He just would.
Yeah, I think most of whether or not it'll be in the AAF too comes from if the XFL will be a little bit more lenient on what McMahon said, I think back in January of last year, was that they wouldn't take any players with a criminal record at all. And so if they're going to be a little bit lax on that to get a splash to have someone like Manziel play in the XFL and come out of the gate with somebody like that name recognition on one of their teams, I think he may want to rule more for that, try to get some experience now and go for the XFL. But if they are strict to that rule that they said they were going to be, this may be his only shot he's got left. So
yeah,
it'd be interesting to see what happens.
Well, before we start picking these AAF games, I do want to get on one tangent and ask y'all both a question. It might have been this show where Tom talked about it, but it might have been another show I was listening to in Birmingham. But I want to get your thoughts. So first pick of the draft goes to the NFL, of course. Now with this AAF starting, second pick of the talent goes to the AAF. Who are the XFL going to pick up now? I mean, if we're calling the AAF the JV of football right now, what is the XFL going to look like next year when they start up? Because the star power is already going to be in the NFL or the AAF. Has the XFL basically shot themselves in the foot by waiting a year already?
Yes.
Okay.
Sounds familiar, like another sports franchise that waits too long. But yes, I agree. I think they have.
Okay. Unless, I mean, they've already said they're not going to pay attention to the NFL college rules. So unless they can entice somebody like a Lawrence, I forget his first name. Wow, how did I forget his first name? The quarterback from Clemson. I was about to call him Joey Lawrence, but that's not that.
Trevor Lawrence.
Trevor. Whoa.
Oh my gosh.
90s reference on the sideline warning. Unless they can entice somebody like Trevor Lawrence or Tua Tagovailoa to come out earlier than they would have for the AAF or the NFL. I think that's the only way we're going to see the XFL survive now. If they go after and make somebody come out or ask somebody to come out early, because if we're calling the AAF JV, the XFL is basically going to be junior high talent.
Well, I think the XFL is going to have trouble getting off the ground. I think the best thing that could happen for the XFL is for the AAF to not succeed and the AAF to say, hey, we're going to pack it in at the end of the season. But I don't think that's the case. We talked about it last episode, the big influx of money coming in. I think there's only going to be more donors that get lined up to contribute to, not donors, but owners and contributors that get involved with the AAF. So I think the AAF is going to finish the season on a good financial standing, and I think that'll be reason enough for them to come back. And I just don't think there's enough oxygen in the room for the XFL to exist if the AAF is there. Fellas?
No, I mean I agree. I think at the end of the day, you've got to look at the space, and you look at the attendance that some of these teams have been able to draw. And I don't know how the weather was in Alabama today.
It was bad.
But the game in the cold in Salt Lake drew about 3,000 more people than the game in Birmingham for an undefeated Iron team today. So I know that there was bad weather in both cases, but I mean, both were below 10, but you almost had 10 in Salt Lake. You only had 6,500 today in Birmingham. So I think if they can find a way to drum up that excitement, people are going to buy into the AAF. I think the XFL is going to come in and try to bandwagon on that a little bit, and it'll be too late at that point, like we're talking about. But if the desire for this extra product wanes over time and that lack of attendance pushes through past just bad weather, I think you're going to look at where both of these are going to struggle to exist. And I think it's just going to depend on how people buy into it. But I don't think there's enough buy-in for two leagues at all.
Yeah. Where I think the XFL needs to look into is I think the XFL needs to say, all right, AAF, you've got the winter and a little bit of spring. We're going to take after your championship game and lead up to the NFL's preseason.
The Summer League.
Game. The Summer League, right. Because
year-round football.
Right. Like Adam was saying, there's not enough interest to have two B leagues. So you need to have an ABC league. And XFL needs to basically say, all right, look, we know our spot. But knowing Vince McMahon like I do as a wrestling fan, Vince McMahon thinks that he has what's the word he uses? The grapefruits to go up against the NFL or the AAF. And that was his downfall in the first place. And I think that's going to be his downfall in this time. I think the AAF will go on for one season and the AAF will fail again. I'm sorry, the XFL.
Well, we've talked about the league financials, but I think the other thing to keep in mind is just the financials of paying a player. The AAF is paying, I believe the contract is $250,000 for 3 years, correct?
Yes,
and there's bonuses for making the postseason and that sort of stuff. So let's say a guy is in a best case scenario. He makes $100,000 a year for 3 years in the AAF. That's pretty good. There's a lot of people in this country that aren't football players that would like to make that kind of salary. Is the XFL going to be able to pay players more than that?
No.
Hard to imagine that they would. And while $100,000 is a nice salary, if you're making less than that, you really don't want to get your head bashed in. I kind of feel like $100,000 a year is the minimum you need to make to be willing to sacrifice your body on the football field.
Yeah, I fully agree
in a
with that.
professional setting. So to me, the XFL can't get a player to sign. We think about these players that are just out of reach of the AAF. We mentioned Jalston Fowler not being signed in the AAF. If he wanted to come back to play, would the XFL be able to entice him? I don't think so.
No.
Not without big money. And I just don't know where that money is going to come from, that they're going to be able to give a better contract than the AAF. And the AAF, I think, to me, is a bare minimum contract.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we're going to see the AAF. I think really after this first hiccup that we saw a couple weeks ago, you're going to see the AAF flourish, and next year you're going to see the XFL just kind of flap in the wind over there. But so that's our thoughts on the XFL AAF situation. Let's go ahead and pick these 4 games. I've got them. Ben, do you have them pulled up, or you want me to go ahead?
I've got them.
Okay. Go
Okay.
ahead.
We're gonna first off, the game near and dear to this show is Orlando at Birmingham. It's Saturday, March 9th, and it's a 1:00 first snap
On TNT.
The game's on TNT.
Yeah, before today, I would have said I think Birmingham defense wins championships. But in order for your defense to win a championship, you have to at least have 22 healthy players on the field. Birmingham doesn't have 22 healthy starters. I got Orlando winning this, unfortunately.
Yeah. Not just being a homer, but I've got Orlando winning this one too. I think they're actually clicking. And to Dave's point, not only are they healthy, but I think they're starting to really gel, and I think they've done that better than any other team has under Spurrier. I think that's a big advantage that Orlando has there. So I don't think that Birmingham is able to iron out the kinks. Oh. I think that Orlando wins.
Orlando scored 20 points at Salt Lake in pretty bad weather. Have you guys looked at the forecast for Saturday?
Is it going to be bad?
It's going to be in the 60s with some thunderstorms. Orlando's offense works when they're able to pass the ball. If this game is going to happen and the weather is going to be cruddy and Orlando has to rely on running the ball against Birmingham's defense, that could be problematic for Spurrier's entire game plan. So I think the weather is the best thing Birmingham could have going for them against Orlando. I'm still going to pick the Apollos, but I think if the weather's really bad and it's just really difficult to pass, Birmingham has a real chance to get to win in this game. And you keep Orlando down. You know, Orlando scored 21 in their last home game. The most they've scored is 37 in week 2, and they scored 40 in the first week. So they haven't scored as many points as they have in the first 2 weeks. That's kind of like when you go into a boxing match and get that first punch as a prize fighter. It scared a lot of people at what that offense could do, but that offense has cooled off. And if the weather's not great, I think that could spell a lot of trouble for Orlando, and that's where Birmingham could capitalize. But anyway, I'm still picking the Apollos. There we go. Long answer.
Hey, good long answer. There we go.
Next up, we've got Salt Lake at San Diego.
I'm going to take Salt Lake here just because I think Salt Lake has showed me what they have against Birmingham and against Orlando. I think Salt Lake is a better team than their record is showing, so I'm going to take Salt Lake.
Yeah, the potential might be there, but they haven't shown me enough to pick them, so I'm going to go with San Diego.
San Diego's coming off of a loss to Memphis, so that doesn't make me real confident in what San Diego is doing. I'm going to pick Salt Lake on the road. All right, Memphis at Atlanta. These would be the 2 bottom teams in the Eastern Division. What's going to happen in this matchup?
As we speak right now, Atlanta is leading Arizona 8-3. Memphis, it looks like a different team with Zach Mettenberger as their starting quarterback. I'm going to say Memphis just because I think Mettenberger is the better quarterback. You have to remember in their game today, going on right now, Atlanta lost their starting quarterback, so lost Chris Sims. So Murray is their starter. I'm going to go with Mettenberger over Murray.
Yeah, I agree. Atlanta is pulling it out tonight potentially, but overall, I still don't think that they've got what it takes. Even though they're the bottom two teams, I've got Memphis.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Quarterback play definitely defines this game. I'll take Memphis on the road. Okay, San Antonio at Arizona. San Antonio coming off of their squeaker win against Birmingham. What's going to happen in this game?
Like I said, as we're speaking right now, Atlanta is beating Arizona. To lose to Atlanta, you've got to be some kind of bad team. So I am going to take – I just can't do it. Both of these teams I don't like, but I'm going to take San Antonio just because Arizona does not look like they've got it going.
Yeah, I don't think it's a hiccup either. I've got San Antonio on this one too. Once you've lost to Atlanta with the state they're in, I think that's a sign of something bad for sure.
I think you guys have got a point, but I don't think Arizona is quite as terrible as we think they are, especially if they're going to be able to play at home and be comfortable in a Sunday night game. I'm going to take Arizona at home. And there we go. Those are our AAF picks for the coming Week 5.
And now it's time to talk about Ben's favorite topic, Alabama basketball. Ben, Hunter Johnson, friend of the show, posted a tweet last night after the Alabama-LSU loss, what it was like to be an Alabama basketball fan over the last 8 years. And I think it's a perfect microcosm of this because it was a gif of a roller coaster, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And that's perfectly what this last week has been for Alabama. We come off a good road win against South Carolina where we actually had to maintain our lead there at the end. And they kind of make us think that there's a chance that we can beat LSU, but then they go on one of these Alabama cold streaks, and all of it breaks loose, and LSU ends up beating Alabama. What was your thoughts on this week in Alabama basketball?
Well, I think the win against South Carolina on the road was the kind of win I would want to see this team make. It was not a perfectly played game, but the good thing about the way Alabama played was they had the lead, they controlled the game for most of the game, and then when the lead got away from them, they came back and took the lead back, and they kept fighting. There were several times where it looked like a here we go again situation where the basketball team was going to have the lead for most of the game, have a drought, and not be able to bounce back. But what Alabama was able to do in this case was bounce back and get the win against South Carolina. Now, with LSU, they had similar fight, and they still didn't get the job done. And that's tough being a home loss, but LSU is projected as a 4 seed. LSU is considered to be a top 15 team, and that's a little different than playing South Carolina on the road. And LSU is a better team, and Bama has given LSU 2 hard fights this season. You would have liked to have seen one of those go Alabama's way, but I think it was still a lot of these losses you couldn't be proud of. This was a loss that you could at least sort of say, okay, this team's got some fight in them. They're going to make some efforts. That's not to say there weren't mistakes. There weren't dumb turnovers. Those are going to happen every game with this team. And there certainly were frustrating moments where Alabama was getting the lead against LSU, and all they needed was, in my view, just to hit 1 or 2 more shots, and they would have had enough of a lead that they could have held off LSU. Instead, LSU gets back, gets the lead, takes control of the game, and essentially fought back for the lead the way Alabama fought back for the lead against South Carolina. So 2 hard-fought games, and Alabama comes out 500. That's not. We want to win both of those games, but it's what Alabama did just enough to stay on the right side of the bubble.
Yeah, I think that they were saying that if Alabama had won that LSU game, they were saying on the broadcast, if Alabama had won that LSU game, we would for sure be in the tournament, and I agree with that. But I think now, right now, Lenardi has us as a first 4 in, or the last 4 in with a bye. Which I guess we could say that you and Adam were correct after looking at the breakdown like we did last week. But I think in order to stay there, I think Alabama has to beat Auburn. Am I wrong with that?
You're not wrong in the sense that beating Auburn would be a Q1 win, and where you are a little bit wrong is Alabama needs one more Q1 win to get the resume solidified, and they could have gotten that by beating LSU, and they could still get that by beating Arkansas on Saturday. Ideally, you'd like to go ahead and win both of those games, Auburn and Arkansas, and finish the regular season with 2 Q1 wins. But if Alabama can get one of those 2 games and pick up one more Q1 win, I do think that's going to be enough to get them over the hump.
So let me ask you this, and you probably aren't like I am. After I attend a football game, I'll come home and watch the football game. I don't think you are as a bog as I am a fog, if that makes any sense. You probably don't DVR the game and watch it after you get home, right?
I do DVR all the games. I do not, due to personal scheduling conflicts, have the time to watch a basketball game again. but I would yeah. So
okay, but here's my question. So as Alabama was getting down within a point, within 3 points, within 6 points, Kira Lewis would come down the court, 2 seconds into the shot clock, pop up a 3. And the announcers, the play-by-play guys, were harsh on him for doing that, and rightfully so. Do you think that is something that could hurt Alabama down the stretch? His youth, I understand that he has turned on and become one of the leaders of this team. It's late in the season. It's almost unfair to call him youthful, but you have to look into it. You know, when he is in Hazel Green here, he's used to driving down the court, popping up a 3, putting the team on his back. He hasn't really had to do that much because Alabama hasn't been in a point to where they're that close in these big-time games. Do you think that that's something that could hurt us down the road?
I'm not worried about anything when Kira Lewis is on the floor. I'm worried about the situations when Kira Lewis is not on the floor. That was a poor shot choice at the time. That was not good shot selection because at that point in the game, Alabama did have time to work the ball around. And so yeah, there's going to be some youthful mistakes putting a 17-year-old out there, but there were also other guys that fired up quick threes that weren't the best shots either. So I think a lot of the focus from the broadcast and a lot of the focus from Bama fans on social media and stuff really zeroed in on that poor shot choice. But I don't think that cost Alabama the game. I think there were a number of decisions and a number of turnovers that were more costly than a poor shot there. Would it have been better to have worked it around and gotten a better shot off? Yeah, I think so. But I think some of the implications that have been out there from a lot of Bama fans is that Kira Lewis is some sort of liability, and that couldn't be further from the truth. He's been one of the leading scorers on the team, and he's been a huge contributor. And I several people have pointed this out on social media, so I'm stealing their thought here. Bama's record right now is 17-12, and I think, as several people have noted, Alabama's record would probably be 12-17. It'd be a complete reversal if it wasn't for Kira Lewis's contributions at point guard. So yeah, it wasn't a good shot, but I don't think Kira Lewis is any kind of liability. He's definitely a guy I would want taking shots. There's been plenty of games this season where he was the guy who was the only one shooting from outside the arc successfully for Alabama. So poor shot choice in a big moment. That stinks, but it's not the end of the world, and I think it's something that he seems to be a pretty smart basketball guy. I think if the coaches are doing their job correctly, that's a teachable moment. You just say, hey, let's look at this video. Let's watch a replay of the game, Dave, and say, okay, Kira, see what you did there? Don't do that again. And I think there's 2 more games where he has the opportunity to show that he's going to make a little bit better shot selection. I don't think I think it was an issue in this game. I don't think it's been an issue on the season. So I don't think that's part of his identity. I don't think it's part of how he plays the point guard position. You're going to have a few mistakes with a 17-year-old, but I don't think he's any sort of liability.
All right. I seem to have struck a nerve with that one.
Oh no! I'm quick to defend a 17-year-old in most circumstances, because I'm zeroing in on that because it was a major thing that fired people up on social media. I don't necessarily go back and watch the games, but I go back and relive the games by reading old Twitter reactions, and that was a major issue. That was a major sticking point for a lot of people on basketball Twitter, and so I just to me I was glad there were some good Bama fans, Hunter Johnson and others, that nipped that in the bud, and I just want to reiterate it because I think it's so good. Kyra Lewis has been key to this team being semi-successful.
Ben, go ahead, Adam. Go ahead.
Let me just say though, I think Alabama's biggest liability lies in the story that you're telling, not with just Lewis, but there seems to be, and maybe I just don't watch enough Alabama be in a fog, right? But there seems to be this tendency now, move the ball around, the first person who's open outside of the arc is going to put up a three, more times than not when they get down the court. And if we're not going to hit those, I mean, you play as hard as we did against LSU, you make one more free throw, one more three-pointer, and one more field goal, and we win. That's 6 points. One more of each. And we were just barely over 50% at the line, and we were almost at about 33%, about a third from the floor as a whole. And it falls back into that, like, just make the shots. And I don't feel like we take enough of the high percentage. If we worked it around and worked it in, I think you win a game like this. But I've noticed, and Dave and I've texted with you a couple of times about just there seems to be this tendency to, hey, I'm the first guy open behind the arc. My name's Riley Norris. I'm going to shoot a three. It's just I feel like they need to work it down a little bit more and be a little bit more aggressive underneath than just throwing up that shot more often than not. But
well, I think if you have a good look for an open three, I think you need to take it. Now, what bothered me was towards the end of the game, John Petty had 23 points. Dante Hall had 14 points. Those were your two top scorers for Alabama. And at the point in the game of the Kyra Lewis shot, because that seems to be ground zero for the conversation, for Dante Hall, who's having a good game, you've got a lot of the LSU players in foul trouble. This was an excellent time to dish the ball inside to Dante Hall and get the ball to him. So I agree with you there, Adam. But also, John Petty's shooting great. So if somebody's going to take a three, let's let Petty take that three. And Kyra Lewis's job there should be to be the distributor and get that ball to Petty. And I actually think Petty had a little bit more real estate around him. Kyra Lewis was in a lot of traffic. So for that particular play, I think it would have been better to get the ball to Dante Hall or John Petty. Or I'm fine with Kyra Lewis taking the shot if he's got a little bit more room. So maybe Kyra tosses the ball to Petty. Petty draws some attention, and then you kick it back over to Lewis. That would be fine too. But I think there could have been better shots in that moment. Completely agree there. But I'm fine with this team shooting threes, especially But I do think the problem is they press too much when they're in a tight game. They've had too many times where they've tried to rely only on the three instead of considering some of the options. So yeah, I agree with you. There needs to be just a little bit more thought and a little bit more patience, and there's an opportunity there to turn some of these things in the right direction.
Yeah, I fully agree with you, Ben. Speaking of right direction, let me ask you this: say Alabama goes 1-1 in these next two games, at home against Auburn, on the road against Arkansas to end the regular season. Does Alabama have to win a game in the SEC championship to get in the tournament? Or does it really hinge on what the other teams on the bubble do?
Yeah, that's a good way of thinking about it. If Alabama wins one of their next two games, Auburn or Arkansas, and gets the Q1 win, they should be in the tournament. If they can win two of their next three games, either Auburn or Arkansas, or a game in the SEC tournament, I think they will be in the tournament. And the difference between should be and will be is solely on what the other teams on the bubble are doing. If everybody else that's on the bubble wants to get hot and have a good 2 weeks here, that could spell problems for Alabama if they only get one more win. If Alabama gets two more wins, though, I think that gives them enough insurance to make it into the tournament.
All right. When's the last time, off the top of your head? I don't think you could. I don't remember this. When's the last time Alabama's been back-to-back seasons in the tournament?
It's been 13 years.
Oh wow, you did know it off the top of your head. Impressive.
I think
So,
I may be off. It may be 12 years, but I'm pretty sure it's like 13 years.
give or take one. Okay.
Yeah.
So I do want to, before we go into our Roo Sport little spiel here, I do want to kind of fan some flames that's been on Twitter. People have been saying that Hunter Johnson and Fluffopotamus are the two biggest Alabama fans on Twitter. There's a tweet from you earlier in this week that I want you to bring up on the show as he sips his Coke.
as I take a sip of sweet tea. Well, there was a debate going on. It was actually from the radio show Three Man Front, where they had a Twitter poll about who was the bigger basketball fan, Luke Ratliff or Hunter Johnson. And I simply tweeted out the poll because I think it's a good poll, and said, I don't recall seeing either of these guys in Montreal or Ottawa, and I'm a basketball fan that has driven to another country to see the team play.
Wait, you drove to Canada?
Yes, I drove to Canada.
Wow.
There were a handful of Bama fans that were in Canada for a game or two. I made it to all three games in Canada, and I drove to them. And then, like last year with the team success, the team played in St. Louis. I made it there for a game. The team played in Pittsburgh in the NCAA tournament. I made it for that game. The team. I was everywhere in French North America, because Pittsburgh was an old French fort. St. Louis, obviously, an old French fort. Montreal, an old French fort. I made it everywhere in French North America to be there to support Alabama basketball. So I'm just saying, I've got an argument. I've got some credentials.
I want to know, did anybody retweet you besides the show? Did anybody...
That tweet did not get as much love as I thought it should have. So I think it's pretty obvious there's a conspiracy out there to tamp down my reputation as a basketball fan and promote other people's basketball reputation. But it's okay. It's okay. The truth's out there, and the people, I believe in the people. The people really know what's up. Well, guys, there's also a couple more things I want to bring out about Alabama basketball. Both of them are actually related to Cecil Hurt. So I'm going to make 2 points that are Cecil Hurt related. One, Cecil Hurt tweeted out recently, with 2 games remaining in the SEC regular season, Alabama men's basketball could still finish with any seed from number 4, which would get Alabama a double bye, to number 11, which would be the play on Wednesday games in the SEC tournament in Nashville.
Fake
Dave,
news.
We talked about this the other day. If I thought Bama could be in those play on Wednesday games, and I don't think that would be the case. It's mathematically possible, but I don't think that's going to be the situation for Alabama. Now, Dave, you said you'd be fired up about this team if they could actually be the number 4 team in the conference.
If they can get a double bye, I will. I'm trying to think of something I would do that's just outlandish. If they can get a double bye, I will wear nothing but Alabama clothes from here until the end of the NCAA basketball tournament.
That's what you already do anyway. That's like a regular day for you.
True.
That's a regular day for you.
Okay, fine. Think of something else. Okay, here you go. Steak bet. Another steak bet.
Another steak bet. But it's a one-sided steak bet, right?
Right. If Alabama can get to the double bye, I will buy both you and Adam a steak at Le Cellier.
I'm not sure what that is, but I think that sounds like a good deal.
One of the best steaks on Walt Disney World property, and Adam's muted. He's trying to talk right now while he's muted.
That bet involves Ben to travel. I don't think that's really a fair bet. Because Ben's already locked up the other steak bet.
Has he locked it up?
By the way, the gap is now 16 games in favor of the home team, with only 14 remaining in the season, so the steak bet is done.
Boom. There it is.
By the way, I just got a text from my wife saying, like hell you will.
Spectacular.
How thin are your walls?
Apparently too thin.
The podcast isn't over, and we've already got to listen.
Put that in your stats.
Right.
So Alabama is 8-8 in SEC play, and just above them, there are, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams that are all sitting at 9-7. So for Alabama to be able to climb up into that 4th spot, you essentially need Mississippi State, Auburn, Ole Miss, and Florida and South Carolina to all lose out.
There's no way that's happening.
Just to clear a path. Hey, anything could happen. It's SEC basketball. Then
don't one of those two teams play each other?
I'm
sure they do.
You'd think maybe, but
Ben's looking as we speak, googling as we speak.
Hear that sound?
I can't pull up that many schedules. I can't pull up that many schedules that fast. But I can see. No, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. Don't tempt me.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's not.
But also sitting at 6-10 are Arkansas and Texas A&M. So Alabama would have to lose out, which would involve losing to Arkansas to get Arkansas up. But then A&M would have to win out to stay out of the bottom. So I guess that's a pretty tall order too. That's a pretty tall order too. Yeah. So I think the simplest answer is the correct one, and that is Alabama will finish somewhere in the middle of the pack, and they won't play on Wednesday, and they won't get a double bye. So they won't have to play. So they'll be starting on Thursday. That's what's most realistically going to happen, unless a miracle or like a rare terrible event happens. So that's the real situation on where Alabama is in the standings. So that's my first Cecil Hurt point. Second Cecil Hurt point, Dave, we started off this conversation talking about Hunter Johnson's tweet about a roller coaster ride. And while that's definitely an appropriate metaphor for Alabama basketball, Cecil Hurt had a great column today talking about Alabama basketball where he pointed out that Alabama's record through 29 games is 17-12. Do you guys know what Alabama's record was through 29 games last year?
My guess would be 17-12.
Yes. Would you guys want to guess what Alabama's record was through 29 games in 2017?
My guess would be 17-12.
Would you guys want to guess what Alabama's record was through 29 games in 2016?
Are we really going to say 17-12?
1-28, just to shake it up.
Would you guys like to guess the record in 2015 through 29 games?
Wow, really?
For 5 consecutive years, Alabama has been 17-12 through 29 games.
That's crazy.
So the only upward trajectory
Cecil Hurt's column was about this and was saying it was like driving a tricycle across Kansas in a headwind. He said, wow. So whether your metaphor is a roller coaster or the flatlands of Kansas, the point is there is definitely room for improvement, but also things could also probably be a lot worse as well.
So what I'm hearing, go ahead, Adam, because I think it's the same point.
Yeah, so the upward trajectory has actually come from an improved strength of schedule in those 17 games that we've won because the rest of the SEC has passed us by in the quality of their play.
Well, yeah, if you want to talk about trajectory, being 17-12 through 29 games gets Alabama looking at making the tournament in 2018 and 2019. It doesn't do that as strongly in 2017 or 2016, and it didn't get Alabama there in 2015. So
because
strength,
the rest of the SEC has passed us by.
So strength of schedule definitely matters, and so yeah, it's not 1-to-1. So 17 wins this year is not the same as 17 wins in 2015. But ideally, you'd like to be at 20 wins at some point this time of the year, and that's where a lot of folks are frustrated. So those are my two big Cecil Hurt points about Alabama basketball. There's still some interesting things that can happen in the standings, and he's got a good column that listeners should go check out.
Well, just as a side point, I think it's now a statistical impossibility that Alabama gets one of those top 4 seeds because on Wednesday, LSU and Florida play each other. So they're in that jumble. So
It's still theoretically possible, though, Dave.
Theoretically, but not statistically possible. Something else that
No, wait.
Hold up.
No, stop. You're saying LSU playing Florida. If LSU wins that game, that still keeps it, because LSU is one of the top 3 teams. They're not playing for the 4th spot.
Okay. Well, okay. Something else that is not a theoretical thing, but is a definite thing, is our love for our sponsor, Roosport. There's your segue.
Wow, that was premium.
That was premium, right? Guys, we say it every week, www.theroosport.com. Go in there, use the promo code Sideline30, get you 30% off of anything you order there at checkout. Adam and I have met Earl, the owner of Roosport, one of the nicest guys you can meet. If you're going to sponsor somebody, if you're going to give your money to somebody, why give your money to somebody, to like Nike or Under Armour that makes these belts? You don't know what your money's going to help. We know Earl and Brenda are great people there at Roosport. Adam, weren't we just saying something about having Brenda on because she's run, 30 to 40 marathons? And she's come on the show.
Almost 50, some crazy amount of marathons she's run. And she was actually at Gasparilla running a race while we were there at the expo for the Princess Half. So we didn't get to meet her. But yeah, Earl said we need to have her on the show so we can hear about some of her stories. So we'll be doing that hopefully soon. And hopefully, help them plug their product in the process. Because to your point, I think, knowing that the product is what it is and that it works as well as it does, and that it's made by people who have a passion for what they do, they're not part of some big corporation, it definitely means something.
Yeah, it does. And I'll tell you, we find new uses for the Roosport every week. And we've been saying that Ben needs to use it for his puppy training. Well, my wife got one last weekend when we were at the expo. And we took Max to the puppy training class today, and she put those treats in her Roosport pouch and worked like a charm. So, guys, you find new uses for it every week. Go in there. They've got those pouches. They've got the power banks. They've got the Roo Lounger, which I still have yet to give y'all a video of me opening it. It's still great. It's still an easy thing to open. I didn't bring it this last weekend on my last trip because, well, we had limited packing space, but it's still a great product. Go out there, www.theroosport.com. Use the promo code Sideline30, get yourself 30% off of everything. Guys, somebody that didn't get 30% off of their price, and here's my other segue. It's time to talk baseball because both shoes have fallen since we've recorded. Manny Machado had a 10-year, $300 million contract, which we thought was awesome. And then the Philadelphia Phillies have signed Bryce Harper.
That's an understatement.
Yeah. 13 years, $330 million. First off, what's your thoughts on the contract, guys?
I mean, good for Bryce Harper and his agent.
Yeah.
I honestly couldn't be happier for the Philadelphia Phillies because they are not going to get their money's worth on that deal. They may get a lot of value out of it, but they are not going to get $330 million worth out of it.
Yeah, that's my big thing is I think it holds a lot of upside for Bryce Harper in terms of the money with the guarantees and the length of the contract. But I think overall for the Phillies, it can only be a bad thing because the fans are going to hold him accountable. And if he's not up to that kind of money, and the thing about it is it's subjective. Like, are the fans going to expect them to, make it to the playoffs with him every year or win the NLCS with him every year? He's going to have to perform, and I feel like he's going to have to carry the team too. And I think with the rest of the stuff they've got, he probably won't have to do it all by himself. But at the same time, I mean, the fans are going to be ruthless when you lay that kind of money at the table for one player.
Yeah. I mean, I said it last week on my Sideline Warning. Philadelphia is one of the worst sports towns in the country. When you have a season like Bryce had last year, 236, he hit 30-something home runs. Philadelphia fans will let him have it, and they'll hate you. They will straight up hate you. And Bryce is not the type of person that can play in an atmosphere like that. So on one hand, good for Bryce, but on the other hand, like you said, it's a horrible contract for Philadelphia. He's 26 years old right now. This is a 13-year contract. He has a no trade clause, and there are no opt-outs. He will be 39 years old when this contract is over.
It's literally a contract for the rest of his life.
This is the contract for the rest of his professional life.
Yep.
Now, then look at what LA offered him. If I'm Bryce Harper, I'm taking the LA deal because 4 years, $45 million, you're only 30 once you're out of that contract. Imagine the money you can get after you're out of that contract. The sky's the limit then.
Well, here's the thing. The way contracts keep going up and up, it's very possible he could have done 4 years at $45 million a pop every year and then still signed another $300 million contract.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think Bryce Harper, while he got the better end of this deal for Philly, he shortchanged himself.
Adam, are you a poker player?
From time to time.
I am.
I know Dave's a poker player. Well, Dave, I'm sure you've heard this saying before. Adam, when you're playing poker, there's always that one guy at the table that is kind of like a chump, you know? He's the guy who's not that good, like especially like in a casino situation. But even if it's just a bunch of guys coming together for a poker night, there's that one guy who is not very good and he doesn't know he's not very good, and everybody at the table is going to take his money. And that person is called the mark. And the saying in poker goes, if you don't know who the mark is, you are the mark.
You are the mark.
And I think the Phillies management team should have sat around and go, nobody else is offering Bryce Harper $330 million for 13 years. Why are we getting this deal so late in the game? You know, I just feel like the Phillies were the chumps that walked right into another Scott Boras trap, and they're going to hate themselves for probably a decade for signing Bryce Harper.
Yeah. They'll hate themselves in year 4, 5, and 6, but in year 1, 2019, let me read you this potential lineup because as a Braves fan, I'm salivating right now. Cesar Hernandez leading off at second. Gene Segura at shortstop at the second hole. Right field, Bryce Harper. First base, Rhys Hoskins. Catcher, JT Realmuto. Left field, Andrew McCutchen. Center field, Abdrubal Herrera. Third base, Maikel Franco. Pitchers, they've got those two. Do you see a hole in this Philadelphia Phillies lineup?
It seems like a pretty good lineup.
Yeah.
As a Braves fan, I was fuming at the mouth on Thursday. The guys can probably tell you how mad I was.
Dave was pretty mad.
I've never seen anybody fume at the mouth, but Dave was doing it.
Foaming, fuming, whatever. Anyway,
you were mad.
Here, we as Braves fans are just sitting here waiting for Double-A to sign Craig Kimbrell, Dallas Keuchel, somebody, because all of the Braves starting pitchers have issues. But it seems like this Philadelphia Phillies, while they might hurt themselves in the long run, are going out to buy a championship. Why? I mean, am I being too short-sighted by being this mad? Because it seems like the Phillies are doing what it takes to win a championship while the Braves are just waiting.
No, well, we're waiting for Liberty Media to buy Fox Sports South.
Yeah, and if that happens,
that's what we're waiting on. All that revenue is pumping into their media outlets and outdoor mall space. I mean, there have been announcements around the modifications they want to make to the space around the park, and that they're waiting to potentially buy Fox Sports South. That's where the money's going. I mean, the baseball team's going to produce the same revenue they did last year because they're not going to move. That's a stable. It's almost like they see it as a cash cow, and they just want to milk it, and then they want to build all this other stuff, and then we'll focus on baseball. You know, it's like when you see Comcast and Universal or Disney and ABC, you know, they have their things that they're throwing the money into at any given point in time. And right now it's just not the team. Yeah. It's everything around the team. The team gets the people into the outdoor mall is almost how it feels.
Yeah. And I said this on Facebook and I'll say it on the show. An article came out the day after Bryce Harper signing with the Phillies. The article came out and said that the Phillies have a small interest in both Kimbrell and Keuchel. If the Phillies sign Kimbrel and Keuchel, my fandom is up for bids.
For 13 years and $330 million, perhaps?
Yeah. I fold because I will throw my hands in the air and say, Atlanta, what are you doing?
I think you're already there, Dave.
No, I'm not folding yet. I'm mad, but I'm not folding my fandom yet.
This is an interesting aside. If you weren't a Braves fan, where would you go?
Yeah, that was going to be my question.
Boston.
What?
Dude, Boston's my second team. I've always liked the Red Sox. I hate the Yankees, so I'm halfway there. I mean, you've got your other team. I've got mine, all right?
Yeah, but it's not the Red Sox.
There ain't nothing wrong with the Red Sox. At least I'm not a Yankees fan.
The Red Sox are my favorite American League team, and I generally do describe them as my second favorite team as well. But in a world where my Braves fandom was up for grabs, I don't know that I could transfer the number one spot to an American League team simply because of the DH. So I think I'd have to relegate myself to thinking about, NL teams and figuring out who to go with from there.
It couldn't be anybody in the... Okay, so if you're telling me an American League team's off the table, the Cubs. Just because,
a bad one.
I've always been they're back in the day, they were the lovable losers. Now they've got some pop in their lineup with Chris Bryant and Anthony Rizzo. I mean, they're not bad.
Yeah, I could never root for a team like Yankees or even Philadelphia, I guess now, right? Yankees, Red Sox, Phillies, who just throw money at people, which is why I'm a Dodgers fan in my second team.
Unbelievable. Well, but think about this. Think about this. Because bringing up the Dodgers, how many World Series have the Dodgers won in this recent era?
None.
Yes.
None.
And they've put together teams that were, by most regards, super teams. Massive player salary budgets, just stacked with all-stars. They even went and brought in Manny Machado last year to stack an already stacked team. They've got Clayton Kershaw. They've got tons of arms. They've got tons of talent, great bullpen. Everything's looked good. What if this Philadelphia team doesn't work out?
I'd be okay with that.
Well, I'm just saying, sometimes you assemble these super teams and they look fantastic on paper and they look like garbage on the field. And I'm not saying that's what's going to happen with this Philadelphia team, but there's a lot of talent, but there's also a lot of complex personalities. And there were some people that last year that were saying you shouldn't sign Harper just because he's a clubhouse cancer. Some people said, well, he's too talented, it doesn't matter. If this Philadelphia team doesn't work, Philadelphia is out of options. And that's the one thing that the Braves have. If you're going to make an argument for the Braves, they've got options because they've still got all the prospects.
Yeah. And remember, to your point, Ben, this time last year, we did our preview show for the 2018 season. I think we basically all said, go ahead and crown New York because of this lineup New York has. Well,
the Yankees win a lot. The Yankees win a lot of World Series, but they also should win more World Series than they do based on how stacked they usually are.
Right. It's true.
A stacked team doesn't automatically win. There's a little bit more secret to the secret sauce when it comes to putting together a good baseball team.
Yeah. So speaking of secret to the secret sauce, before we get into our picks and sideline warnings, I want to get into looking at the top contracts in any sports history. And I want you to tell me if it's been a good contract for the organization. All right? This is off sportingnews.com. Coming in at number 11 is the David Price Boston Red Sox deal. 7 years, $217 million free agent signing. Was that a good deal for the Red Sox?
Yes, they got a World Series.
Yeah. Okay.
And still have potential to get more.
Yeah, but I think Price is on his downward slide. He's not the arm he was in where was he? Houston or the Detroit. Wow, how did I forget that? So, All right, next one. Joey Votto signed his contract extension with the Reds in 2014, $225 million over 10 years.
It's a bad contract because there was nothing else to put with it. Like, what's the point of having like a superstar if you have nobody else? Like, I get it. It gives people a reason to buy season tickets, maybe. But what's the point in tying up all that money in one player if there's going to be nobody else on the field that's good?
Absolutely.
Yep. All right, here's one in a sport that we don't normally talk about. James Harden, his contract extension with Houston in 2016, $228 million over 6 years.
In my view, the NBA is a little different with the way the money is flowing in the NBA right now. You have to have a superstar to even have a chance at being competitive. So a $225 million baseball player is very different than a $225 million basketball player, just based on the amount of impact they can have on a team and have on games. So I think, yeah, Harden's absolutely worth that, and he'll be even more proven right in being worth it if Houston can somehow get a couple of extra pieces in there to make a very good team be a championship winning team.
Yeah, because you look at his run of all those 40-point games that he has. I mean, he was the sole reason they won a good portion of those. Well, if they could have some people to back him up, I think that could end up being a good thing.
He's a leading MVP candidate, right? That's what.
Yeah, he is.
For 200 million, for 225 million in the NBA, that's what you'd want. That's what you'd get.
Yeah, I agree. This next one, I think we're all going to say is a bad contract. Great player, but bad contract. Adam, I think you know a lot about this one. 2012, Albert Pujols, $240 million for 10 years to the Angels.
No, sorry, it's not.
It's a bad contract.
Yeah, it is. I hate saying that, but yeah, it's not a good one.
Yeah. Ben, do you agree?
Not a good contract. Now, granted, that's an older contract, so we have the ability to look back on that a little further and really say it's not good. But yeah, it's not a good contract.
Yeah. Tied with him is the Robinson Cano deal between the Yankees and the Mariners. Was that a good deal? Was Cano worth that kind of money?
He probably was for the Yankees for the amount of time they got him. It wasn't a good deal for Seattle, especially since he wound up taking steroids and getting suspended for half a season.
Yep, I agree. All right, Miggy Cabrera. 2016, he signed a deal extension, $247 for 8 years. The Slugger is now 35 and will make at least $30 million each of the next 7 seasons.
Wow.
So he'll make $30 million into his time he's 42. As good a player as he is, I say this is a horrible deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a good deal because there's just not, it's similar to Votto. It makes sense when there's a competitive team. It doesn't make sense when you can't put a competitive team around him.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and he's not playing a full schedule even last season either, right? I mean,
no,
with guaranteed money, that's the problem.
Right.
Yep.
And the Tigers have an issue with doing this. I mean, they did this with Victor Martinez. Signed him as a catcher. Now he only DH'd into where he couldn't even run basically at his last couple of years. The next contract.
Hey, one more thing on Miguel Cabrera. I love him. I think he's a great player, but he's also had struggles with weight. I think you don't want to discriminate on these guys based on certain things, but you want to see somebody take care of themselves. Joey Votto has probably been pretty consistent in his weight over a decade. Miguel Cabrera has had a lot of fluctuations in his weight and had some injuries that seem to be related to his weight. I think that factors into whether or not a guy should get a contract.
I agree. The next contract is probably one of the most famous contracts on the books. 2001, A-Fraud, 10 years, 252 with the Texas Rangers. What do you think?
Yeah, terrible contract. The Rangers couldn't win with him, and once they unloaded his salary and got a better TV contract, they had competitive teams.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Very next deal. The same man with the New York Yankees, 2007, 10 years, $275 million. The remaining balance, see, the Yankees, A-Rod retired in 2016, but the Yankees still had to pay him through the remainder of his contract. The remaining balance, estimated around $27 million, was paid off in 2018.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's the Yankees got how many World Series in that time?
Maybe one.
They won one.
Yeah.
I think if you win a championship, it generally justifies exorbitant amounts of money. But it's the Yankees, and they had exorbitant amounts of money anyway. I think when you sign A-Rod, the hype that was around the Yankees signing A-Rod, the end of Jeter, they already had a complete team. To have Jeter and A-Rod together in the same infield, that's a contract that should have produced more than one World Series. So while it was probably a good deal, and I think they fell short of expectations, and so I don't think the Yankees got their money's worth.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, here's one that we're going to have to put on our time travel goggles. The Manny Machado, 10-year, $300 million. So let's just go ahead and say, do you think it's a good deal, or is this going to be a situation like Pujols, like the Tigers, Miggy Cabrera? Is there enough people around Manny Machado in the Padres to make this deal worth it?
There's not enough people around him now, but it makes the Padres semi-relevant for a change. And with 10 years, they've got time to put some extra pieces around him. The Padres supposedly have some good prospects coming up. If he's the veteran leader on a team that has a lot of talent 3 years from now, it probably will be a good contract. The other teams in the West, the Dodgers are holding on by a thread. They're stacked right now. They won't be stacked in 2 years. So the Padres are looking at the National League West going, hey, it's ours for the taking. The prospects age up a little bit and get ready to go, and Machado's our centerpiece. It could be a good deal. It could start an NL West dynasty. But a lot of things have to go the Padres' way.
Yeah, I think his stats have been consistent and even on an upward swing enough to justify it. But to Ben's point, I think a lot of other things have to happen for team-wise for it to pay off.
All right. We've got 3 contracts left. One y'all probably won't know much about, and I don't know much about this guy. But number 3, Mike Giancarlo Stanton. In 2014, he signed a deal with the Marlins for 13 years and $325 million. The Yankees traded for Stanton in 2018 and assumed the remaining 10 years of that deal. The kicker here is Stanton can opt out of his contract in 2020. This is a kind of a two-sided thing. Was this a good deal for the Marlins, and now is it a good deal for the Yankees?
Did it say if the opt-out was part of the original contract, or was that added?
It was part of the original contract.
It had the potential to be a good deal for the Marlins, but because he's not in a Marlins uniform, it wasn't a good deal.
Well, and they didn't get much back for him either.
Yeah, in no way did it wind up being a good deal for the Marlins. It had the potential to be a good deal because at one point they had Yelich and Ozuna. They had some guys. They could have built a team around that quality outfield, and that evaporated in another classic Florida Marlins sell-off. So it wasn't a good deal for the Marlins. Is it a good deal for the Yankees? It didn't get them past the Red Sox. The Red Sox got a World Series. They did it they paid the price to pay for David Price. They got their money's worth. The Yankees, it's only worth the money if you get the championship. And the Yankees haven't done that yet. They could be well positioned to make that run this year because it's all the same faces that we thought were going to be the top of the line last year. The Yankees could make that run this year. This could be their year. And if so, it might be worth the money. They got to win a world. They got to win a World Series, though.
Yeah, what we're seeing is a lot of Yankees are on this list, and a lot of the Yankees probably have overspent. Thank you, Steinbrenner family. I appreciate you for that. Number 2 on this list is one that we've been talking about ad nauseum. Bryce Harper, 13,330. We all say it's probably a bad deal for the Phillies. Good deal for Bryce Harper.
Yep.
The number 1 on here, and I know boxing, and I don't know this guy, Canelo Alvarez. In 2018, the professional boxer agreed to an 11-fight, $365 million contract with some global sports streaming service. Alvarez is earning an average of $73 million annually, making him the highest paid athlete in sports internationally. I don't know if we can say anything about that one.
I know Canelo.
Okay. He hasn't fought Dante, and that's...
Look, boxing.
Is it Muy Bien then?
No. One of his fights last year was one of the biggest fights of the year. And he's on. I think he's the guy that's on a bunch of these Tecate beer commercials or whatever. He's a recognizable face in boxing. That's so different than anything else we've talked about because everything else was a team sport.
Right.
So is it a good deal? Like he's in it for himself. He's not in it for a franchise. He's not in it for a city. So he's putting his brains on the line and getting them bashed in. The more money he can make, the better. So it's a good deal for him if he's willing to put his brains on the line.
I agree with that.
Speaking of that, how many football players were on this list?
None.
The sport that in theory causes the most bodily harm, the most physical harm to your brain and to your head, to your neck, to your skeletal system, to your bodily organs. Those guys are not getting paid like the guys that are in less high contact sports.
Yep.
In fact, the only players that were on this that weren't baseball was basketball and boxing. That's it. You would think that some soccer players would be on here because of the international trades and all that stuff, but they weren't on here. It's all baseball.
Football players need to wise up, and their agents need to wise up. Because football's making a lot of money, and it's probably it may not be edging out the NBA, but football's definitely making more money than baseball. And as much as I love baseball, the NFL is doing better than MLB financially. They're bringing in more money. Those players need a better slice of the pie.
Yep, fully agree. All right, there's our talk on Bryce Harper. Ben, bring them into the regular season picks.
All right, we've got the last picking for SEC play. We've got Tuesday's games leading off with South Carolina at Texas A&M. The game's in College Station. Who do you guys like?
I got South Carolina winning this on the road. Texas A&M's not a good team. South Carolina showed me some good things against Alabama last week, so I got South Carolina winning this.
Yep, South Carolina for me too.
I will take the Gamecocks on the road. Mississippi State takes on number 7 Tennessee in Knoxville. What's going to happen?
Knoxville shocked me when they basically blew out Kentucky this weekend. I got Tennessee winning this one big time.
Yeah, Tennessee. I think this one's going to be over pretty quick.
Didn't the Tennessee-Kentucky games go exactly the way I told you they were going to go?
Yes, they did. It seems like there's a script.
Just wanted to check and make sure that I was right. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna take Tennessee at home. No reason to not finish on a strong note. Number 4, Kentucky taking on Ole Miss. Who do you guys like for this game in Oxford?
Kentucky here. Kentucky will be one of the top 4 seeds. Will be one of the 1 seeds.
Yeah, same here, Kentucky.
Yeah, got to think Kentucky's going to pick up the road win. See, Dave, you're accruing lots of road wins here right at the very end.
I think it's mathematically impossible, though, isn't it, Adam?
Too little, too late. Yep.
Better luck next year. We can't wait to talk stakes. All right, that'll be a whole segment on the next show. We'll talk stakes. All right,
might be
one game left in the Tuesday games. That is Auburn, 20-9 on the season, 9-7 in SEC play, traveling to take on Alabama in Coleman Coliseum. Alabama, as we've said ad nauseum, is 17-12. They are 8-8 in SEC play. So a win from Alabama would give Alabama and Auburn the exact same record in SEC play.
You know what's going to make this one of the loudest times you'll hear Coleman Coliseum? All the Fogs will be at Coleman Coliseum today, or on Tuesday, because that is when the Alabama football team gets the Iron Bowl trophy. That won't help. Auburn beats Alabama 83-76. Because they will always find a way to shoot the lights out, no matter what gym they're in.
Wow. Yeah. I don't see the score being that high, but I think Auburn's going to pull it out. I'll say 75-62.
The mark of Alabama in the last few games has been they've been playing much better defense, much more disruptive defense, and it's discombobulated South Carolina and LSU for a time. If Alabama comes out and plays that kind of defense against Auburn, they have a shot at canceling out a lot of Auburn's threes and holding them down. Bama's going to have to make this a low-scoring game to get the win, but I think they're focused. I think they know how important this game is, and I think there's going to be a lot of energy in the room that they can draw on. I like Alabama to pull out the win 74-71, beating Auburn by a three-pointer. All right, time for the Wednesday night games. We've got 3 games to pick. It's Mizzou on the road at Georgia. Both teams have losing records on the season, and both teams have losing records in SEC play. What happens in Athens?
I've got Mizzou winning this, and it's a coin toss. I'll just take Mizzou.
Dave's sticking with road teams.
You know what? If it's a coin toss, Dave, I'll just go the opposite just to make it interesting.
Why not?
Georgia.
Why not?
Georgia has not been pretty, but the last few games they've actually played well, even though it hasn't necessarily translated to wins for the Bulldogs. I think Tom Crean is finally getting buy-in from the players, and that's translating into a better product. Mizzou's got nothing left to fight for. Georgia's got a home court advantage and maybe a little confidence. I'm going to take the Bulldogs at home. Next up, number 13, LSU. Battling, they are in. When you look at the standings, at 14-2, they are tied with Tennessee for first place. LSU's got a lot to fight for as they travel to take on Florida, perhaps the best defensive team in the SEC, at least one of the top 3 or 4. You can make arguments for Tennessee and Kentucky being better. Florida's a very good defensive team. They're at home hosting LSU. We saw LSU get a little bit discombobulated with Alabama. What's going to happen in this game?
The main reason I see LSU winning this is because they have so much left to play for. I've got LSU winning this in a very, very close game.
Closer than the experts think, perhaps?
Yes.
Yeah, I think LSU will win. I don't know about close, but I'm going to go with LSU too.
I tell you what, I think I just psyched myself into it. Florida's trying to move up a little bit. LSU may be moving down a little bit in the seeding. I'm going to take the Gators at home. I've already locked it up.
Look at you, man.
Florida's going to play great defense. It's going to spell trouble for LSU. Florida just got a really good game tape watching Bama versus LSU. All right. There we go. I picked the Gators. I'm going to regret that later. I know I am. Arkansas versus Vanderbilt is the last game for Wednesday.
There's no way I can pick Vanderbilt here. Arkansas wins this one.
Yeah, I'm not picking Vandy either.
Somebody's got to pick Vandy. Why do you guys put this on me?
Well, because it's not baseball season. We know Vandy's waiting for baseball season.
Vanderbilt's 0-16 in the SEC. And they're on a 17-game losing streak. There is no reason to pick Vanderbilt here. But they've got to get one win at some point, right?
No.
Right?
No, not really. Don't do it, Ben.
Don't.
Arkansas. I'm picking Arkansas.
Boy.
Man. Okay, that was close. Okay, now it's the Saturday games, the final regular season games for all of the SEC teams. Number 7, Tennessee, travels on the road to Auburn. Last year, these two teams were battling it out to see who would be the top of the conference. Auburn has had a good season, but not nearly as good of a season as Tennessee. What's going to happen down on the plains?
I got Tennessee winning this one in a rout. Tennessee knows what they're playing for. They're playing for a number one seed in the NCAA tournament. Tennessee wins big.
Yeah, Tennessee's going to take care of business. Auburn will not shoot the lights out like they do against Alabama.
They will against us, though.
Yep.
I do think Tennessee is going to be able to get the win here. They're going to be able to do just enough to get the win. This is a tough week for Auburn. We've talked about them playing Alabama in Tuscaloosa, but this will be a very emotional game for Auburn, being back on their home court with the difficult week that's going on with everything in Lee County. So our thoughts and prayers to the Auburn fans this week. But we do hope for the best for the Auburn community. But pick-wise, I'm going to go with Tennessee here for this game. Georgia taking on South Carolina in Columbia to wrap up the season.
I hate to go against my road team, but I've got to go with South Carolina here. Georgia's a good team. Like you said earlier, Tom Crean's got this program in the right trajectory, but South Carolina's a better team.
Yep, I agree, especially at home. I've got South Carolina too.
I will go with the Gamecocks as well. Texas A&M taking on Mississippi State in Starkville.
I think this is the game that will mess up your little Alabama still has a shot at number 4, Ben, because if I'm correct, both of these teams are in that jumble. I got Mississippi State winning.
Yeah, I got the Bulldogs at home.
If A&M loses, they would just be in the bottom 4. So this is not that game, Dave. But close.
Okay.
But close.
I'm still waiting for it.
I will take Mississippi State at home, finishing on a strong note, getting ready for the NCAA tournament. Florida taking on number 4 Kentucky in Rupp Arena.
There's a potential where you could see 2 number 1 seeds coming out of the SEC. I'll take Kentucky with this one, with that fact going through their head.
Adam?
Sorry. Yeah, at home especially, I've got Kentucky too.
Yeah, I got to go with the Wildcats here. So in full agreement with you guys. Ole Miss is on the road at Mizzou. Ole Miss seems to be tightening everything up to be in the tournament. Mizzou doesn't have a whole lot to fight for at 4-12 in the SEC.
Yeah, I got Ole Miss winning this every day, all day.
All day, every day?
All day, every day.
Because it is harder to win on the road, but I'll mathematically now. I'm going to go with Ole Miss too, though.
I'll take Ole Miss as well. I just don't have a lot of confidence in what Mizzou is doing. Vandy, who we all think will be still defeated, not undefeated, taking on LSU in Baton Rouge to wrap up the season.
They'll be 0-19 on finishing their run here.
Yeah, poor guys. Yeah, they will be.
Hate it for them.
It's an unthinkably difficult season for Vandy. If they don't make some magic happen on Wednesday, it's not going to happen on Saturday. That will be a win for the Tigers. 1 game left to pick. We are wrapping up the regular season. It's Alabama versus Arkansas. By the way, all these games you look at, it's got the team leaders. Kyra Lewis, who we've spent a good bit of time on, is the team leader in 14 points a game, 2.5 rebounds, 2.9 assists, averaging 14 points a game. That's your child point guard there at 17 years old. Alabama at Arkansas. Give me a score prediction.
I've got Alabama winning this one 69-68. Close win, very close. Makes everybody nervous and scared because if Alabama loses this game, we're probably looking at NIT. But I've got Alabama winning this one 69-68.
Yeah, I like your optimism, Dave. I've been burned one too many times, though, unfortunately. And I know the look I'm going to get on the video here probably, but this is the one where it's like, all right, guys, we're going to do it. We're sealing the deal tonight. We're going to the tournament, and they fall flat somehow. I think Arkansas is going to win this one. I'll say the same score as you, Dave, just the opposite.
Okay.
It will be difficult for Alabama to get a road win here, but I think if Arkansas is discouraged and Alabama's fighting, they can come in with enough confidence to pull out a road win and recapture that mindset they had when they beat South Carolina. I'm going to take Alabama in a close one as well, Dave. I'm just going to think it's going to be a little bit higher scoring just because it's the nature of it being in Fayetteville. I'm going to take Alabama to win 76-74.
All right.
That, gentlemen, wraps up the SEC season. We'll talk about stake bets next week. And those are the picks. And now it's time for the sideline warnings.
Hey, first off, Ben, do you like your Denny's steak cooked very well or just decently well?
I don't think Denny's steaks were in the steaks STAKES for this, but anything more than medium is
Criminal.
Exactly.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
I like the cow to still be a little bit mooing. Go ahead and hit us with your warning there, Ben.
I'd rather get a steak at Waffle House before I got a steak from Denny's. Okay.
Oh, we'll talk about that later. Okay.
Anyway, I think you get a better deal. We'll talk steak. We're talking steak restaurants next. We're gonna have our own steak bracket. We're gonna have a steak bracket next week. I think that's what we just talked ourselves into, because you have to have some. You have to have some random bracket to pick. Okay. Anyway, for my sideline warning, it couldn't be simpler. We've talked about it throughout the show, throughout the season. Alabama still has a lot to play for in basketball, and there couldn't be a bigger game than having the tournament on the line and facing your in-state rival. Alabama had the opportunity to improve their case for the tournament last year by playing Auburn in the SEC tournament and getting a big win. Alabama needs to not wait and see if they play Auburn in the SEC tournament. They need a big win right now. They need it Tuesday night. And if you are a Bama fan with the means and the ability to be in Coleman Coliseum, if you're in the Tuscaloosa area, if you're in the Birmingham area, it's an 8 o'clock tip. I know that's late, but it also means you got plenty of time to get there. They make coffee for a reason in this country, so you can drink it the day after Alabama beats Auburn. Bama fans, show up and support your team. Hunter Johnson, great basketball fan who we've noted several times on the show, had a fantastic tweet where he said, look, regardless of what your position is on Avery Johnson, you need to show up and support this team while they're playing Auburn for what this season means. Regardless of what you think about Avery Johnson, you got to show up, you got to support Alabama when they're taking on Auburn. So if not, you should probably turn in all your Crimson stuff. That's what I'm saying. Bama fans, step up, pack out Coleman Coliseum, and let's get this done.
I have an excuse. I'll be in California, so I won't be able to be in Coleman Coliseum. I'm sorry.
Dave, you're exempt. But the rest of you,
okay.
The rest of you listening, if you can be there, you need to be there.
Okay. That works. Adam,
if it means something to you, if it means something to you, you can't sit still.
That's our MO as a team. That's what people know us as. All right.
Wow.
Adam, you're exempt as well because you're all the way down. You're down in Florida, and I don't think that it'd be easy for you to get here either. But go ahead and hit him with your sideline warning.
I mean, we have a guy on the show who drove to Canada, so can I really even say that it's inconvenient?
Boom.
Ooh.
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly. I'm not
so,
going to entertain a lot of excuses.
So let me know where to return my Crimson stuff, because my sideline warning is actually not a traditional sideline warning. It is an explanation. Raised a fog, and there is a clip of a voicemail that my dad left on the Blitz line that I'm going to play really quick. I want you guys to plug it in right here and explain why I'm a fog. It is not my fault. So take it away.
Hi, guys. This is Virgil Russell. Several comments. Number one, Dave, you have a new nickname with several people in the Central Florida area. Your AKA name now is the Magnificently Fallacious Dave. You can look that word fallacious up and you'll understand what I'm talking about. As a matter of fact, we're thinking about starting up a class. It's Dave is Wrong 101 for people to learn how not to bet. Also, the basketball, I have to take the blame for Adam not liking basketball. I have never been a basketball fan, and I did not introduce him to basketball. He did not grow up with basketball. The only time he was involved in basketball was when he went to the University of Alabama. So don't blame it on him. Blame it on me.
So as you can see, guys, it's not my fault. So not driving to Tuscaloosa 17-12 all these years. The SEC has passed us by, and you're going to have to do something better than this to get my attention. I'm sorry. So, Ben, let me know where I need to drop off my Crimson stuff, because I'm sorry, man.
Adam, you're exempt for being in Orlando. We will make exceptions for out of state. We'll make exemptions.
Okay, good. I'm still a fog, but hey, you know what? I'm just glad to have the exemption. But yeah, with that said, because to me the basketball season is going to be over in a few weeks because Alabama's whatever. Baseball season is here. I think 1 year ago around this same time I had the same sideline warning. Go with your son, go with a friend, go with your significant other, go to a spring training game, sit out in the sunshine, and enjoy some baseball because now sports has started again as far as I'm concerned. Thank you, gentlemen.
The Braves were not in town when I was in Orlando. Do you know how mad that made me?
Well, you were only really mad about it because you couldn't stand at the entrance of the sports complex shaking your fist at the buses that drove by saying, "Sign somebody!"
Well, no, I wanted to go to a game. But anyway. So my sideline warning is going to be a rant. Shocker, right? Because that's what I do. So I got an email this week, and I was all excited because the subject of the email was your Tide Pride football waiting list results. Guys, I've been on the waiting list for 10 years. I haven't heard anything, haven't gotten an email like this. I thought, here it is. I'm getting the email. I'm called up to the bigs, guys. Here we go. I've got it. I opened said email, and let me read this email to you. Dear David, they used my Christian name. Thank you for your interest in obtaining Tide Pride season tickets for Alabama football. The purpose of this communication is to introduce new procedures and enhancements to the existing Tide Pride waiting list for new season tickets. These changes are intended to, 1, ensure we have current contact information for each prospective season ticket holder. Okay, I'm okay with that. 2, is to provide a clear path of the goal of obtaining Tide Pride season tickets. Okay. My goal is to get them. That's the clear path. Give them to me. And 3, introduce a mechanism for improving your standings on the Tide Pride waiting list. And 4, allow Tide Pride waiting list members to the ability to begin accruing Tide total priority points prior to becoming a Tide Pride season ticket holder. At this point, I'm rolling my eyes. But I'm not too mad because I haven't read the rest of this email. The rest of this email made me want to throw up and throw my phone. As an existing Tide Pride waiting list member, they don't say this, but for 10 years, you will be asked to renew your membership on the waiting list annually with a $25 administrative fee. Do you hear that silence?
Dave's mad.
Do you hear
I just
that?
love waiting list membership.
Right.
Like it's a club now to be on the waiting list. It's great.
So not only will I have to pay $25 a year to hope that in the next 50 years I can get tickets, I'll have to also pay $3,000 for these tickets and when I somehow get these tickets, when Saban dies or retires or something, when Alabama goes into obscurity with football again, when everybody else loses their season tickets. So you're telling me that in order to be in this club, to be on a waiting list, to have the potential to buy my tickets, I have to pay you $25 a year? Not only did I give you thousands of dollars of my hard-earned money to go to school there, now I have to pay you $25 just to get into the stadium to watch my favorite team play? I'm sorry, Greg Byrne. I will not be renewing my Tide Pride membership or waiting list membership. There's no chance for me to get season tickets now because I am sorry. I will not be paying into this. We saw this when they were doing this new thing for the stadium. CJ mentioned this when the first time we had him on. Greg Byrne, you are outpricing the little man, the man that makes Alabama football great. You're making this a millionaires club, and for people to get into that stadium, to fill out Bryant-Denny Stadium, to get the passion that we need in that stadium, You're pricing it out. Greg Byrne, I love what you're doing with the facilities in basketball. I love what you've done with baseball. But for football, you might be putting me on the path to be a bog. We know that probably won't happen, but you might be putting me on the path to be a bog. Baseball, only Gump.
What?
Not even softball? Come on.
That's a particular type of self-hatred to be a baseball-only Gump.
Okay, a SOG, a GOG, gymnastics only Gump, softball only Gump. Does that work?
You can't be an only if you're in like 6 different things.
Okay, fine. You're pissing me off, Greg. You're pissing me off.
For me, a guy who had an extra $25 lying around, I am thrilled that you've gotten off the list because I'm moving on up.
That's right. One spot up, man.
Yep. I just hope there's more Daves out there. Because, the waiting list was probably going to be 10 years for me. Now it may just be like 2 or 3 years because Dave's getting out of the way.
Well, Ben, we know that you're going to have more tied points because your basketball season tickets are going to count towards this.
Perks of not being a one sport only Bama fan.
Well, if I was a season ticket holder for Bama basketball, I'd be that Bama basketball fan that you hate because I have the season tickets but can't go to games.
I have no problem with someone being a season ticket holder and not going to the games. I have a problem with them being the people who are season ticket holders and don't get somebody else to use their tickets. So you could have been like a charitable person, Dave. You could have bought the tickets and given them to somebody else.
Oh, there's no charity. I would have sold them. I would have sold them.
That'd have been fine too.
All right, there you go. There's my sideline warning. If you want to get a hold of the show like Adam's father did, Adam, how do you do it?
You call 931-44-BLITZ. You'll hear a brief message and then my voice explaining that this is the Sideline Warning Blitz line, and then leave a voicemail. We'll play it on the show. We'll talk your take or answer your question or whatever it is you want to talk about. Just leave a message, 931-44-BLITZ.
You do that. You can also get a hold of the show on Twitter, at SW The Show. We're also on Instagram, the same handle, SW The Show. You can get hold of me on Twitter. I am at DAdams419. He is at the Ben Foster. Adam is at RunTideRun. Hey, I got it right this time, Ben. You can also get a hold of the show on Facebook, facebook.com/Sideline Warning, or facebook.com/Sideline Warning, or SW Show, one of the two. I forget it every time we do it. Give us a like, give us a thumbs up on Facebook. Join our Facebook fan group, Sideline Warning Facebook fan group. Guys, we said every week, we love you. We'll see you next week. For John, and roll time. Take aim. All right, y'all ready?
Let's do it.
Doing this live in 3, 2, 1. And welcome into Sideline Warning, everybody. This has been a great, wet week of sports, and we're doing this over. That was a horrible intro.
That was pretty bad.
I don't even know what I was thinking.
I was like, we don't talk about swimming and diving that much, but
all right,
wet and wild water sports.
It's a wet week of sports here in Alabama.
3, 2, 1. Basketball Jones. I got a basketball Jones. I got a basketball Jones, ooh, baby. Ooh. Ooh. Name the movie.
I literally have no idea what just happened.
Oh, that was the sound. That was on the soundtrack to Space Jam.
I don't remember that.
Oh, dude, it was Chris Rock and Barry White. Basketball Jones.
Oh my gosh.
I got basketball Jones. Ben doesn't even know that song, Adam.
Are you talking about the one from Space Jam?
Yes, I am.
Ooh.
I don't recall this. I don't recall this at all. It wasn't in the movie, right? It was just on the soundtrack.
Yes,
it was in the movie.
It was in the movie when they were going through the doctor's office. The players who had their powers stolen from them going through the doctor's office. It was playing in the background.
Interesting. I don't remember that. I remember the players going through the doctor's office. I don't remember that music.
Back when Sean Bradley hit his head on the doorway and fell backwards.
I remember that. I just don't remember the music. Well, I guess this is an excuse for me to go back and watch Space Jam.
There you go.
You don't need an excuse to watch Space Jam. Here's something that I hope this is still recording. My wife does not like Space Jam.
I'm not surprised.
Amanda does not.
In the least.
I know. She also doesn't like Mary Poppins because she doesn't like cartoons and real life humans together in the same movie.
So she doesn't like real life.
Mary Poppins.
There's certain people who are just cartoons. Sorry.
We're not going to name any names.
So no Roger Rabbit? No Roger Rabbit?
Oh, no, she hates Roger Rabbit. I love Roger Rabbit.
That's a classic. And, and Bedknobs and Broomsticks. Don't forget that one.
There you go.
Wow, you went old school.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I don't play.
Is there any way to see where you are on the list?
No, not currently.
That's so stupid.
Are you on the waiting list?
Yeah. I mean, I got the same email. I'm actually paying my $25 administrative fee now so that I can jump you.
Are you really going to do it?
Yeah. Well, I don't know because I'm looking at this.
That's sinister. I love it.
How much am I going to have to donate to even, like, if I knew where I was, I could say, oh, I need to give $300 and I'm there. But it's like, I don't know where I am.
Right. If I'm 1,400 down.
I mean, it's a blind bet, man. It's like, I'm going to give you $1,000. Is that good enough? 2,000? Can I have 3,000? 4,000? I mean, how much
it's a silent auction.
It's ridiculous.
It is. They are basically out doing the middleman.
And maybe I should have jumped in. Because what irritates me about it, Dave, is the only reason Alabama football is as big as it is because the only thing the poor farmer had back in the day
was Alabama.
To make him feel important in this world was Alabama going out there and beating Washington, riding a train out there, beating them and riding back. That's the only thing he had. The only good thing anybody could say about Alabama forever was that the football team was good. And now you have to go through this bull crap. So I'm with you on that. But I didn't want to be the other get off my lawn guy like I normally.
I definitely was this time. I mean,
the socioeconomic principles behind why Alabama football is so important demand that you don't do this kind of thing. I swear.
I, for one, am happy we're getting rid of the freeloaders on the wait list.
Oh dear Lord! I was going to pay my money just like everybody else when I got the call.
I'm just excited that when we sing "We Are the Champions," I'll be able to really blast out the verse. I've paid my dues time after time. I got my tickets because Dave got out of line.
Wow!
And bad mistakes. He's made a few. I had some tickets thrown in my lap, and I've come through. And we'll go and on to all the games because I've got the tickets. That's a premium outtake. That's how you sing for an outtake, Dave.
Oh,